Welcome everyone to a groundbreaking webinar series on inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility, presented by Gaining Vision 2020 in partnership with Connect for Life Charity. I'm Sean Pickard, and we are excited to bring you this transformative series of sessions that explore the interconnected themes of inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. Our mission is to create a platform that celebrates the uniqueness of individuals, promotes equitable practices, and ensures accessibility for all. Join us as we delve into thought-provoking conversations, exchange insights, and learn from experts in the field, all with the aim of fostering a more inclusive, diverse, and accessible society. Welcome to I.D.E.A. Do you know what this means? We like to start each session by acknowledging the land in which we call home. Gaining Vision 2020 acknowledges the lands which constitute the present-day City of Mississauga as being part of the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat and Wyandot Nations. Gaining Vision 2020 recognizes these people and their ancestors as people who inhabited the land since time immemorial. The City of Mississauga is home to many global Indigenous peoples. Gaining Vision 2020 is actively working towards reconciliation by confronting our past and our present, providing space for Indigenous peoples within their territory to recognize and uphold their treaty rights, and to support Indigenous peoples. Gaining Vision 2020 formally recognizes the Anishinaabe origins of our name and continue to make Mississauga a safe space for all Indigenous peoples. Melanie Malo is a seasoned educator with 25 years of experience and a passionate advocate for inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. As an I.D.E.A specialist, she has been a trusted consultant in these vital areas, offering her expertise to organizations seeking to create inclusive environments. With over a decade of experience facilitating workshops and training for professionals, Melanie has honed her skills in empowering individuals and fostering positive change. Ladies and gentlemen, here to speak about unconscious bias, Melanie Malo.
Good day, everyone, and welcome. I would just like to once again welcome you to another webinar where we're going to explore an element of I.D.E.A. I encourage you all to take what's necessary for yourself, to come with a positive attitude and be open to learn. Now, again, we all come from different walks of life and we all have different experiences. Therefore, for this topic, unconscious bias, you may be an expert. It may be something brand new to you, but allow yourself and give yourself permission to sit with what you're learning. It may make you feel uncomfortable. It may trigger you. So please do whatever it takes to make you feel safe and to understand what you need best. Again, there's no need for blame, shame. Just be you and embrace the information. And if you need to take a moment and pause the video and come back to it, we'll be here for you. Sean, how are you?
Doing well, Melanie, thank you. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Now, unconscious bias is a big topic. Are you ready for this?
I believe I am, but let's get to the intention of what we're doing today.
Sounds good.
That way I know I'm going in the right direction.
Perfect.
So the intention today is about uncovering the hidden influences, breaking the barriers of unconscious bias. There's a few objectives here. So we're looking to raise awareness and understanding, increase people's awareness of unconscious bias, its prevalence, and its impact on decision-making processes, relationships, and inclusivity. Provide a clear understanding of how unconscious biases are formed and how they can unintentionally influence our perceptions and behaviors. We're also looking to identify and recognize biases. We want to help people identify and recognize their own unconscious bias, explore common types of bias and their manifestations in various contexts, such as the workplace, education, and everyday interactions. We're looking to foster self-reflection and encourage individuals to confront and challenge their biases. We're also looking to mitigate bias and promote inclusivity. We want to be able to equip participants with strategies and techniques to mitigate the effects of unconscious bias. We want to provide practical tools for creating inclusive environments, fostering equitable decision-making, and promoting diversity and acceptance. We want to empower participants to take proactive steps towards mitigating bias in their personal and professional lives. We also want to foster open dialogue and learning, encourage open dialogue and constructive conversations about unconscious bias, facilitate discussions on its consequences, both at an individual and societal level, create a safe space for participants to share experiences, insights, and best practices, fostering continuous growth. Now we have an activity here, Melanie.
Yes, I do. And I want everybody to get a piece of paper and a pen, something to write with. Or if you want to join your phone, feel free. Again, I have to get back into technology days, Sean. And I want us to make some headings on this piece of paper. Sean, what do we have?
We are looking to head things up with a woman, a black man,
Yes.
an Asian person,
Yes.
an Indigenous person, and a person with a disability.
Okay. And under each heading, what I want you to do is jot down the first couple of thoughts that come to your mind when you think of that group of, so a woman, what comes to your mind? Write down those words. A black man, write down those words. An Indigenous person, write down those. Did I miss one there, Sean?
Person with a disability.
Person with a disability. So please take a few minutes and we're going to get you to do that. And we're going to come back and I'm going to have a conversation, see what Sean wrote down.
So let's give folks out there a little bit of time.
Yes.
Now, I hope I did this right.
There's no right or wrong. This is the great part. And this activity, actually, I did in another webinar I did before. And I was a participant, and I was really surprised after doing this activity what people had written down. And it's not a judgment. It's nothing. Like I said, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just our own perceptions.
Let's go through the topics again here, just
Okay,
so
yes.
we make sure everyone has what they're after.
For sure.
We're looking for information on a woman, a black man,
Yes.
an Asian person, an Indigenous person,
Okay.
and an individual with a disability.
Right. Okay. So again, we'll give a minute or two for everybody out there. Just write down what comes to your mind. Example, I'll just say for a woman, what came to my mind was strong, nurturer, loving.
That's a lot of information just by looking at one person.
Right. But those are mine. That came to my mind. What came to you?
For me, a person.
Oh, okay. That's it?
That's it. Because that's all the information I have on this list. A woman. Well, what? There's millions of them on the face of the earth.
Okay.
A woman, okay, which one?
Okay.
Who are you talking about? Who should I be talking to? There's just not enough information for me. So a woman is a person.
Okay. What did you get for the next one?
Black man, there's a guy, another person. Because again, I have no information other than it's a black man.
Okay. And for me, I put strong, intelligent, handsome. Do you know why I did that?
I believe your husband comes to mind when
That's
you hear
right.
black man.
And so again, I'm curious what you did for the other ones, and then I'll explain.
For all of them, it was basically, there's another person, or yet again another person. I didn't want to add anything like strong or anything like that because I honestly know nothing about these people. And I have absolutely nothing to go on just by what it says here.
Interesting. It's really a good perspective to look at, Sean. But the reality is that, did you know that within a split second, we all have a bias that comes to mind when we see somebody? So when I see you, right off the bat, before I knew you, I thought of something. I don't remember what it was because it was so many years ago. But again, and they will say that we all have preconceived notions or biases, whether good or bad, because you notice when I spoke about a woman or a man, I'm a black man, they weren't negative, but those are my biases because it could be a positive or a negative, depending on our upbringing, a lot of other elements we'll get into today. But I think it's important because when I did this exercise in the other webinar, there was a lot of controversy because a lot of people we're using stereotypes. And again, it's not right or wrong because this is what comes to their mind. It just was a really good self-reflection exercise for us to really get a sense of where we are with bias. And Sean, I think what you show today is that you're open to more information.
Well, if I went with everything that I've heard that went under all of these names in my years of living, we don't have enough time. And the simple fact of the matter is, that was those people, that experience, positive, negative, whatever, it was then.
Right.
It's not now with what I'm doing and trying to move forward.
Okay, fair enough. And I'm really curious to hear what everybody out there wrote down. And you don't have to share it with us, but I would encourage you all to take time to reflect. Where are these characteristics and thoughts coming from? And as we go through today's workshop, go back and reflect after the workshop, and perhaps you understand where the bias or thoughts are coming from.
Now let's get into some definitions here, Melanie.
Important stuff.
So bias, a prejudice in favor or against one thing, person, or group, especially in a way to be unfair. Unconscious bias, social stereotypes about certain groups of people that individuals form outside of their own conscious awareness. We all have them. Stereotypes, a widely held but fixed and oversimplified image or idea of a particular person or thing. Privilege, a special right, advantage, or immunity granted to only a particular person or group. And discrimination, the unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people, especially on the grounds of ethnicity, age, sex, or disability. So, what is unconscious bias, Melanie?
So I think it's first important for us to start with the fact that all of us have biases. It's in who we are. It's built into us, and we can't change it. So just by accepting the fact that we have bias is a good start. I've heard so many people say, I'm not biased, but that's not true. Everybody has a bias. And that's because it's how we've been programmed, how we've evolved since childhood. And as we go into the different reasons, but unconscious bias is when we don't even realize that bias is part of what we're thinking and doing. It's been, as I mentioned, ingrained in us since childhood. Perhaps it's a belief that we grew up with from our family. Perhaps it's a societal thing or a cultural belief, something that's impacted us that made us who we are. Now, again, that bias doesn't have to be good or bad. It could be good as well. But again, it's important to be aware that it is a bias.
Always, always very important to be aware.
Yes.
Now, when we're talking about types of unconscious bias,
There's so many of them.
there are many. I'll start with going through these.
Okay.
And then we'll touch base.
Sounds like a good plan.
Make it a little easier, well, for me anyways.
Okay.
So, types of unconscious bias. Things like individual bias. This is where it's for just a single or an individual. Group bias. This is where you get a group of people holding the same belief, holding the same bias. Institutional bias. This is where the bias is ingrained in the organization through policy or procedure. Now, cognitive bias. Couldn't that be something that everybody runs into on a daily basis? Couldn't it be considered part of your workflow? If you're doing something, and particularly, we were talking about positive bias, I use this because it works well. Wouldn't that be a cognitive bias? You're training someone else. This is what I use. Things of that nature.
It could be, but here's the question. It works well for you. Will it work well for everybody? The thing is, we have to look at facts, not what we believe. And that's just different, because we don't always believe facts. So what works for you might be your belief and based on your belief systems, but it may not be factual. And we'll get into that a little bit more later.
Excellent. Now, we do have a couple more types of bias here, Melanie. Affinity bias, where people have the same interests. Anchoring bias, where people have a tendency to rely heavily on or anchor themselves to the first piece of information they learn about someone. We have attentional bias, the practice of paying attention to some things while simultaneously ignoring other things. Confirmation bias, favoring or focusing on information that confirms your existing beliefs or biases. you may automatically disregard information that does not confirm your existing bias. Melanie?
So there's a lot of details here, Sean, but I think what we're looking at is we're looking and grasping to always be right, what we believe. And I think it's important for us to be aware that this could be happening so that we learn how to acknowledge when we are facing biases and kind of understanding where they're coming from. So can you think of any of those examples that you have seen for yourself?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the confirmation bias, I see a lot of that in the music industry. A lot of people that, well, this is what someone used, so I'm going to get the same sound. Well, no. That's that type of thing to me.
Okay.
I actually see, I mean, affinity bias. That could be just pick your local book club. That's an affinity bias, really. Attentional bias. I see a lot of people paying attention to what they think is important, not necessarily looking at the bigger picture.
And that's exactly it. And I think, we, again, tend to go to what we know and we feel comfortable with and stay there. And anything else, we kind of repel, stay away from it because it's uncomfortable. So I think it's important for us to acknowledge that we have these biases and to understand where they're coming from so we can address them and hopefully move forward and not have those biases going forward.
Now we're going to move on to stereotypes.
Yes.
Now, we see stereotypes every day in our society, and we tend to accept them about certain things. And they often go unchallenged. Now, fortunately, because they are a social construct, these are things that we can eliminate or we can change.
Can I give some examples for you?
Sure.
Okay, so I've heard this over and over again. Canadians are so polite. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
We always say sorry, please, thank you. But have you ever seen a Canadian driving on the highways or even as a passenger? Are you always polite when you drive, Sean? Or being on?
Oh, no.
No, I think we all can say we're definitely not all polite. Another one I've heard a lot is women are so emotional. All women are emotional.
No, okay.
Okay. But the fact of the matter is, they're stereotypes because not all women are emotional, and especially not all women are emotional all of the time. Facts are something that is 100% accurate all the time. But stereotypes is just a perception, a bias. Because I can tell you, there's a lot of women out there that are not emotional.
Absolutely. Now, for us to talk about instinct bias, we do get bias as part of our natural instincts. We have developed, and now we rely on our instincts for survival. Bias helps us to simplify our decision making by providing us with tried and true ways of doing things. If we were to reanalyze situations every time we came across them, it would be exhausting. So instead, we utilize shortcuts, which includes our bias. Evolutionary psychologists believe that we are hardwired to be suspicious of things that are unfamiliar to us and comfortable with things that are familiar to us. We are uncomfortable around groups that we have not interacted with before or groups that we don't have an affinity with. That's all part of an instinct bias, our instincts.
Exactly. So can you see how bias plays such a big part of our life? Because I think, as I mentioned, it's so important because we have so many different situations that come up. And if we took time to analyze every situation we come across every day, we get nothing done.
Oh, how do I do this? How do I do that?
Exactly. How's this going to impact this? No, we go with what we think in our gut and how we feel. And this is where bias sneaks in, unconscious bias.
Now, wouldn't they sometimes call that experience if you've been on the job for 10 years or something like that?
Yes, it would be experience, but is it biased experience or is it the right experience? It's the questionable fine line.
At that time, that can only be answered by the individuals that are dealing with it.
You got it.
Now, another bias that we have, or something that impacts our bias, we should say. So for media bias, this slide that we have here, Melanie, we have a gentleman checking out his smartphone while sitting on a skateboard, and you see his prosthetic leg predominantly displayed in front of him.
Okay.
And regarding media bias, research suggests that we consume a 2-hour movie, or a 2-hour movie is 2 gigabytes of data. So this is watching 17 movies worth of data in one day. We can't process all this information consciously, but it gets stored in our brain unconsciously. Media deemed to be sensational, as people don't like to read long articles or drawn in by catchy titles or what is called clickbait. On an unconscious level, our brain does not know right from wrong. It is data in, data out with the media. We have an algorithm that influences the information we are being presented. I'm sure everyone here has had an experience where you look something up online and then you've gotten ads for it and wherever you looked. Algorithms are reinforcing the information we seek out, and they can make assumptions about us and create profiles. Melanie?
Yeah, I want to talk about that, Sean. It's true. When you think about it, if you're on Facebook, any social media platforms, or even if you're just doing some shopping online, you'll notice if you search for something just once, it's always going to come back and pop up those ads that are really focused on that. But think about it, whether it's on social media or watching media on the TV, on the radio, listening to it, it is definitely a lot of information coming in and out. And our brain can't really process all of it. So we pick up on certain things. I like the example of the clickbait, because how many times have you scrolled through articles and you get a catchy title and that's like, oh, what that's about? And it has nothing to do with the article at all. And it's just, I think this is important because not only is AI now making assumptions about us, but I think even people creating some media are looking for what's going to catch people's attention. It may not be so factual. It could have a slant, a bias.
And that's the scary part, that there could be that bias in the media.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about bias itself, just the word, and how that word itself, what it is, how it impacts us.
Absolutely. So it's where do we get bias? Where does it originate from? I think where we're going with this one. Our upbringing, correct?
Correct.
All right. So let's think about it. If our family, our parents, or our caregivers, whoever we were raised by, have a particular point of view about a certain group of people and they say it over and over again, we may start to believe that because we're not going to question the people that raise us because, of course, we assume they're telling us the truth. So again, I can just use a personal example. Growing up, my family, Italian background, of course, everybody, my family was Italian. So were raised with the Italian culture, the belief systems, upbringing, right from wrong, those sort of things. And I never questioned anything my parents said about the Italian culture. But as I got older, I had to question what I learned. And again, it can be anything. It could be religion. It could be some family member has a prejudice against a certain group of people. Again, whatever it might be, we have to be mindful about our upbringing and when we raise children as well.
Very important points.
I think we're on to microaggressions next, Sean.
Yes, we are indeed. And we have a few of these to go through. So let's start with the first one, Melanie.
Okay.
Microassault. Now, microassault, this is when the person acts intentionally. It's safe to assume that this individual knows their behavior is going to be hurtful. Number 2, we have micro-insults. Now, these are the more subtle, but can be just as harmful and have long-term effects. Now, this can be a comment implying a woman or a person of color was a diversity hire rather than getting the job based on merit. Yeah. And our third one that we're going to talk about is micro-invalidations. These are comments and behaviors that deny the lived experience of marginalized group members. What do you think, Melanie?
Oh, these happen all the time, especially in the workplace. The one that I really connect with for myself is the micro-invalidation. For me, when I say something's not accessible, oh, yes, it is. Oh, yes, it is. This is my lived experience. Please don't invalidate what I'm saying. So these happen, and we have to be mindful that when we're communicating in the workplace, that we're sensitive and aware about what is happening to ensure that we are not being guilty of committing microaggressions, because these have an impact. Think about it as you get a mosquito bite. If you get one, it's a little bit itchy, it's a little sore. But imagine getting mosquito bites over and over again. continuously. The pain and suffering over a long period of time is impactful, and it can have long-term effects on that person.
That is a lot of itching if it's mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Now we'll talk about the consequences of unchecked bias on diversity here, Melanie. And we're talking about things like discrimination and inequality. Unconscious bias can lead to discriminatory practices in hiring, promotions, and decision-making. Now that's perpetuating inequality within the organization. We also have diverse talent loss. Individuals who experience bias may feel undervalued and leave the organization, resulting in a loss of diverse talent and perspective. There's also inclusive culture erosion. Unaddressed bias can erode the sense of inclusion and psychological safety in the workplace, leading to lower employee morale and engagement.
These are huge consequences when you think about it, Sean, because if biases were addressed and addressed in a way that made people feel included, we wouldn't lose the talent, people wouldn't feel less than, and it could be easily corrected.
Oh, absolutely. Because that leads to our next point, which is missed opportunities. And these biases can cloud judgment, which that leads to your missed opportunities.
Absolutely, because again, we lose it on that talent, we lose it on the perspective. There's so many missed opportunities we may miss completely as an organization or a business.
Just because it's not inclusive for that aspect.
Yeah, and again, checking our biases at the door would have taken that away.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, a few more here are things like reputation damage. Organizations that are perceived as fostering bias may face reputational damage, affecting their ability to attract top talent and retain customers. There's also legal and financial consequences. If biases in discriminatory practices, organizations may face legal consequences such as lawsuits or fines.
Absolutely. I'm sure we've all heard in the news. There are definitely companies out there that are known to be biased, that have a right or left-wing approach. And definitely that'll impact customers' decision to shop there, to work with them. And I've definitely heard of many lawsuits about discrimination. And it's important that people know that there are legal issues that will come, whether you're being sued, whether it's a human rights case. There's so many negative sides to it. But unless we have time to work on ourselves, address our own biases, and be aware of how bias impacts the workplace, we still stand to be victims to this.
That's some very good points there. And it actually really leads to where we're going with a few of the next points.
Okay.
Things like team conflict, right? Unconscious bias can create tension and conflict within the teams. Now that is definitely hindering collaboration, productivity, and you're losing out on some of that perspective with that.
Absolutely. And as an employee, do you want to go to work when you don't get along with your coworkers?
That's a good question, but for me, I like to ask it from the other side.
Okay.
Do I want to go to work if I'm being an ineffective leader?
Aha.
Okay.
And there you go.
Because if you're biased towards certain things, you can move your people around in such a way that you're missing out on things.
Absolutely. And I think, again, going back to the different types of biases, that if we stay with what we know, what we're comfortable with, we're, as individuals, are going to lose out on experiences as well.
Absolutely. Now, a couple more of these consequences that we have are things like decreased creativity and innovation, where we're talking about a lack of diversity and inclusion that actually stifles the innovation and creativity within the teams and departments. And that limits the entire organization's ability to adapt and grow.
And I think this is so key because, again, if you're feeling like as you don't belong and you're being centered out or discriminated against, you're not going to care as much, and you're not going to allow the creativity and your hard work to go into the project. So you're going to kind of just sit back and let everybody else do all the work. And it's a no-win situation because it won't just impact a department, it's going to impact the whole entire company.
And that leads to a negative employee experience.
100%. And who wants a negative employee experience? Not the employee, not the managers, and definitely not the organization as a whole.
Well, I'm going to say definitely not the client.
Oh, for sure, 100%.
So let's talk about some strategies to address unconscious bias. Things like education and awareness. Learn about unconscious bias and its impact. Understand that everyone possesses bias, and it's essential to recognize and acknowledge them. We have implicit bias training. This is where you attend workshops or training sessions focused on identifying and addressing unconscious bias. There's also reflect and self-assess. Regularly reflect on your own thoughts and behaviors to identify potential bias. Honest self-assessment is crucial for growth. And diverse exposure. Engage with people from diverse backgrounds and experiences to broaden your perspective and challenge stereotypes. What do you think of those, Melanie?
Well, Sean, have you noticed this is all self-work? It starts with us. And that's the thing, because our biases, unconscious or conscious, are going to have an impact on every aspect of our life, in our personal life, professional lives, and in the community. So we need to start with ourselves. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't have to carry this conversation and address it in the workplace, because of the training, the self-assessment, all of those things also applies in the workplace. But I think before we can move forward to the workplace, we need to start with our own. Would you agree?
Well, I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, because what I'm getting from you is I actually have to work on myself. I have to do something. I can't just sit there and wave a flag.
You're right. And here's the thing, because it's your biases, right? It's my biases I have to work on. So if I work on mine, you work on yours, then we come together in the workplace and address on it as an organization with our leaders. We're all going to end up working better together. But again, we have to also remember biases are natural, and we shouldn't blame ourselves, but we need to address and be aware that we have them, and to kind of check our biases. Why is this happening? What is our belief system? Where is it coming from? And is it still relevant? Because again, if it's from our upbringing, that may not be relevant today.
Very good points. So some other strategies to address unconscious bias are things like inclusive language and behavior. Be mindful of the language and actions you use to ensure they promote inclusivity and respect for all. Decision-making processes. Implement structured decision-making processes to minimize the influence of biases on important choices. Encourage feedback. Create an open environment where colleagues can provide feedback about potential bias in a constructive manner. There's also bias interrupters. Develop strategies to interrupt bias in the workplace actively. This may include asking for a second opinion in critical decisions. What do you think of those, Melanie?
So think about it this way, especially with the hiring process. I'm sure you've heard, Sean, sometimes they'll take the names off the resumes now when they're going to go through to pick who they're going to interview, because people have bias based on name if it's a different nationality or something that they don't know. So this is one process, but also in the decision-making processes, making sure there's many different perspectives, a diverse group of leaders making decisions. And then, of course, that interrupter piece is huge. Having somebody be there to check the bias. So what are your reasonings for this decision? Perhaps have you considered this? So having that double check, and then finally having opportunities and policies in place for feedback from the employees, from the leadership, and from the stakeholders and clients. It's so essential.
So trying to listen to the people that you're actually impacting.
You got it, 100%.
Now, the last couple of strategies that we have here, now our last strategies to address unconscious bias are things like data-driven approaches. Rely on data and evidence to make decisions rather than relying solely on intuition. Or hold leaders accountable. Encourage leadership to champion diversity and inclusion and hold them accountable for promoting equitable practices. Those are some big things there, Melanie, but what do you think?
Well, again, so going back to that feedback from the employees, stakeholders, and clients, you need to listen to the data. You need to hear what people are saying. If you think things are fine because in your opinion it looks fine based on your biases, if you're not listening, then you're not going to make any change, and you're going to have that unbiased, unbalanced, and unequal environment. Then of course, keeping leaders accountable is essential, because if you don't have leaders that can understand the impact of unconscious bias, then you're not going to have an inclusive workplace at all. So really holding them accountable to do those checks, to make sure the employees have what they need and that everybody is getting the training and resources they need to understand unconscious bias and the impact it has.
So there's a lot of personal culture involved in this.
100%.
Now, looking back through what we've done today, we've done things regarding around the definitions of unconscious bias, the types of unconscious bias, strategies to deal with them, media, microaggressions. We've dealt with all sorts of things today, Melanie. How would you summarize it?
Well, it's been an in-depth conversation, lots of information, and again, if it's new, it can be overwhelming. But please take the time to sit with it, understand what your biases are, and ensure that you understand that these are natural, but just understand where they're coming from. Because as we mentioned with stereotypes, we can make change, we can impact how we're going to go forward. And therefore, if we're doing our personal work, then we can then take it to the workplace and hopefully have the leaders of the employment of the company understand that this is the direction we need to go. And then hopefully, Sean, that we can overall understand that bias is a part of our life, unfortunately, but it is. And it doesn't have to be negative. It can be something we learn and grow from.
Those are big things to stand up to. But ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. Melanie, thank you for coming in. If you're looking for more information about unconscious bias, please reach out to Connect for Life at connectforlife.charity@gmail.com or Gaining Vision 2020 at gainingvision2020@gmail.com. That's all the time we have for today, folks. Until next time, bye for now. Melanie?
Thanks so much, everyone. Take care of yourself and enjoy the rest of your day.